everyone, and welcome back. We are getting ready to go here for episode number 8. But before we get started here, Armin and I, we called our shot. It's happening. Zach Strong is back, and he is with us for good. Like we mentioned in the previous
Woo!
pods, we said we wanted him from day one, and we knew as soon as we get him on as a special guest, he'd be hooked. And look at that. Guess who's back? Back again. Zach Strong. Zach Strong is back. What's going on, Zach?
Happy to be here. Happy to be part of the team. Last week, listening to the first pod after I was on for the 2 in a row, I was like, oh, I miss you guys. There's times where I was stuck in traffic and I'm like, oh, I want to jump in right now. I want to argue that point. So happy to be back. Happy to be here. Thank you guys so much.
He fires in the group chat. We have a side little group chat where we just talk about fantasy football. Now, obviously, it's our podcast group chat, but he fires in there about, oh man, I wanted to talk about Adam Troutman so bad. Because the funny thing was Zach actually was going after Troutman in our home league first, and then I swooped in, snaked him, got Troutman, and Zach's like, oh man, I would have had something to say. So I was like, okay, we'll save it for the pod. We can talk about it after how I snaked you getting my tight end sleeper. But yeah, we're real happy to have you on, Zach. Like we mentioned, when we started this thing, this was the 3 we wanted, and a little bit late, but better late than never. So now we're moving forward with the 3 wanted, and we're full go ahead now. So now we meant to talk about Zach. We might as well throw it to other host Armin. Armin, what's new and exciting?
Oh, just with spring here, built a planter box recently, ready to grow some plants and have some vegetables.
Right on.
Yeah, let's go. And
Right
happy to have Zach here. Ecstatic. Let's go.
Absolutely. Man, talking about spring weather, I got a nice little burn on me yesterday. I spent about 6.5 hours pressure washing my entire house. We had some cold weather for a bit there, the classic Saskatchewan. It's cold, just kidding. Now it's hot, just kidding. Cold again. But man, hopefully this warm weather is here to stay. But it's that time of year, so I'm pretty excited. I guess just kind of quickly graze over this. We're with this episode, we're pretty pumped for this one, but we have a special guest. We're having our very first interview with Brian Witherspoon, Super Bowl champion. So we're real happy with that.
Yeah.
But with how this interview is, it's a little bit longer. So we're going to be able to just kind of changing the episode up a little bit this week. So we'll still go through our insiders and headliners, but we're going to be getting rid of keep, trade, cut, and we're also going to be we'll not be doing our hot takes. Our hot take is that this interview is freaking deadly, and you guys are going to enjoy it. So that's our hot take of the week. But just with the length of the interview, we're just going to keep it short and sweet. Just interview, and then just keep you guys in the loop of what's going on in the NFL. And then next week we'll be back at it with the full go keep, trade, cut, insiders, headliners, off-season segments, hot takes, all the regular episode content. So I guess with that being said, we might as well get into the insiders and headliners, and then we'll queue up the old interviews. So first piece of information for insiders and headliners. This is a tough one. From a busy backfield to what we kind of figured was probably the RB2 in that backfield. Jeff Wilson Jr. Tearing his meniscus, probably out for 4 to 6 months. I did a little bit of research there, and they mentioned that in the meniscus tears, especially in running backs, it's more towards the latter end than the earlier recovery. So we're thinking probably close to 6 months, which is obviously putting a good chunk of the fantasy season in jeopardy for Jeff Wilson. But what do we think about that injury there, fellas?
So when I read how long he was out for a meniscus tear, 4 to 6 months, it sounded long to me at first because from my experience, I remember like working with Huskies here, and meniscus tears, they're not infrequent. They happen probably once or twice a year on a team, and it was usually a few weeks kind of thing that they'd be back for. They could be out for maybe half the college season in the U sports here, which is like only like, I think they only play 8 games and then they go to playoffs, right? So it seemed kind of funny to me that torn in June, beginning or end of May here, and he'd be gone for that long. And so I looked at it, and they can't just go in and scope him. It's there. He completely tore it, and they have to rebuild the meniscus, and that's why it's such a long recovery for a meniscus with him. which is too bad. But I'm not concerned about his future ability because meniscus tends to heal quite well, and you can perform quite well after the fact. It's a very easy to come back from injury, but I am worried about his spot in that backfield when he does come back, because that is a full backfield and he's going to be behind a little bit. Oh, and I picked him up last year on waiver wires, and I was like, oh yeah, let's go, and now it's shoot.
Yeah, I guess talking about that busy backfield, Zach, who's your guy? Obviously, we still think Most is probably the guy to start, but if you had to peg now the number 2, that maybe the sleeper pick to kind of going into the season, who's the guy you're probably gonna be targeting?
If I have to target one guy out of that backfield, it'll probably be the cheapest guy in the draft, or whoever, slips through our draft and ends up as a waiver wire pickup. Like, looking at their depth chart, there's still Hasty there, Mostert, Mitchell, Sermon, and they signed Gallman pre-draft. So to invest heavily into one of those guys, I think that might be a mistake, because there's 4 or 5 guys that could potentially win that job. So I think the smart play would be to just wait, and whoever falls to the latter part of the draft, or whoever makes it to the waiver wire, if you want to be part of that backfield, maybe that's your shot to take a chance.
Absolutely. So continuing on the way here, obviously we started recording on Mondays just because Armin and I coach football here in Prince Albert on Tuesday, so it just kind of was a tight turnaround for us to record, edit, and be coaching for a couple hours on that Tuesday. So now today, as we're recording, it's May 31st. Tomorrow is the first opportunity for Julio Jones to get signed. There's a lot of buzz right now about where he's going to go. I think they've listed off 15 teams that are in the running right now, so it seems like every single article you look at, it's like, oh, this team's the favorite. No, this team's the favorite. Now this team's got a good offer. And so right now I don't think there is a clear-cut team that is saying, hey, we're the team that's going to get Julio. So Julio, he came in that interview. I don't know if he knew he was being recorded or whatever at that moment, but man, he threw the Falcons under the bus. But I guess right now, we might know when this interview drops, or when this podcast drops, sorry, we might know actually where Julio is. But if we had to take our best guess right now, you guys, where do you think he's going? I guess we'll go Zach first. Where do you think? If you had to take your best guess right now, Julio Jones is being traded to blank.
I gotta say, I'm a big Pats fan, and for about the last week, Patriots Twitter has just had rumors and speculation that he's coming to the Pats. But the GM there in Atlanta has done a good job, I think, of pumping the rumor mill, getting teams, whether or not it's real, getting teams listed as suitors. Obviously he would help the Pats, but if the price to pay is that first round pick, I want nothing to do with that. Mm-hmm. For a 32-year-old receiver, we'll likely have to redo that contract anyways when he gets to New England, or wherever he gets to. So for fantasy, I would like to see him go to, I guess Tennessee would be a good spot.
Yeah, my AJ Brown stock is disagreeing with you on that one. Armin, where do you think he's going to land?
You know what? I'm actually opposite of Zach here, and I'm feeling the Pats for it. They were trying to desperately load up the receiving core, fix it up a bit. And what better way to fix it up than Julio Jones? He was injured a bit last year. That age was starting to show with that hamstring injury. But when he played, he still looked elite. And he comes into that Pats offense, and he's immediately the number one. There's no second guessing it. And Cam Newton to Julio Jones, who wouldn't love to hear that? Are we playing it like, yeah?
I'm just gonna say 2015 Zach would be walking around with a dumb grin on his face.
Yeah. But who knows? Maybe they can run it back.
Yeah.
I'm man. There's been some, like, all of a sudden the Seahawks came out of nowhere and they're speculated, and San Francisco speculated. Everybody's like, oh yeah, Pittsburgh's like, yeah, we got enough receivers, but I would love to have him. It's like, well, yeah, everybody would love to have Julio Jones. But I think taking a shot in the dark, I said this from get-go, I think the best fit for him, not only to be successful, but I think for fantasy as well, I think the Indianapolis Colts, there hasn't been a lot of reports that they were in, like on the start, they were like, okay, the Colts could be a team. And there's not been a lot of reports saying that the Colts are front runners, the Colts have put offers. But I think all of a sudden come June 1st, I think the Colts might put it, because they have the cap space. They have the receiving room that would all of a sudden take a questionable 1-2 to make a real competent 2-3. T.Y. Hilton, he's old and he's kind of doing his thing too. So I guess you can make a competent 3-4, I guess, where Ty could be the 2 in the field stretcher in that situation, and Julio could be Julio. I mean, you want to know if Wentz is the guy. Well, load him up, and if he struggles, then you know what you got to do. So I think the Colts could be a pretty good landing spot for them, not only for fantasy, but I think for Julio as well too. So I guess we'll see once this pod drops. We might already know, but we'll see. We'll see who's in that. Who we'll see kind of right in that situation. Going through a couple quick ones here. Todd Gurley's visiting Detroit. I don't know. I'm not excited about it. Like, we already have our guy. We have Swift. We pick up Jamal. I don't know why we need to get Gurley too, other than maybe just making that 2018 wonder season and connecting Goff with Gurley again. I don't know, but maybe unless they think they can get him on the cheap and his knees is spontaneously going to fix themselves. I don't know, but nothing too exciting there. But Corey Davis hurt his shoulders in OTAs. They're kind of doing a little more digging on it. There's no update as of yet, but hopefully he's healthy and ready to go start the season. But it sounded like he went up for a ball and kind of fell awkwardly on his shoulder. So hopefully he's good to go there. It's a little bit of tough news for the Jets, especially.
I actually think that's a big one. I think, or not a big one, but yeah, it's worth keeping an eye on. Like,
absolutely,
you got Zach Wilson coming in as your QB1. You want him to have as much time and as many reps as possible with the receivers that he's going to be playing with. And if you look at that receiver room, like there's Mims returning from last year, there's Mitchell, and there's Moore, and there's Davis. There's rumors circulating that Crowder could be cut as early as tomorrow. Same deal with Julio Jones there. That June 1st designation makes it a lot cheaper for teams to cut players. So if Crowder's gone, then those are your clear-cut top 3 guys. And if Davis misses any amount of time, it's obviously not good for the Jets, for Zach Wilson, or for Davis's fantasy stock.
Well, yeah, because you can making that connection with the other receivers. All of a sudden, you're the outside guy looking in, and yeah, it's it's a tough situation, especially for a guy that kind of had a slow start to his career and finally picked it up a little bit in Tennessee. You're looking to maybe get your big break, and unfortunately, going down in OTAs is not a good situation. Aaron Rodgers saga continues. They just finished saying, the GM mentioned that they will not trade him, so it's the cat and mouse game again. I mean, it seems like everybody's talking about, is he going to retire? Is he going to go Jeopardy? As of right now, I don't think he's concerned too much about that. He's living his best life in Hawaii right now, jumping off cliffs and hanging out with his wife and Miles Teller. It looks like he's having a pretty good time. But I guess at this moment, if you had to give a percentage value, what do you guys think? Is he going to be a Pat next, or Is he going to be a Packer next year? Give me a percentage there. We'll start with Armin. What do you think? Percentage wise, what's your confidence level of him still being a Packer start of next season?
Oh, that is a tough one. We're going to go with, I'm going to say 30%. 32.1%.
Precise.
32% that he is a Packer, Armin?
Yeah.
That he is a Packer? Oof, it's pretty low. I don't know. Probably like a 70% chance.
So you're all in. He's still there.
I think so. I don't know. Like, again, it's kind of like what the Falcons are doing with Julio there. They don't exactly have a lot of like negotiating power, I don't think. Like, everybody in the world knows that Rodgers wants out, but I think they might just be so stubborn that they just hold on to him.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I think I'm going to go 50-50 because it's not only the opportunity of him being traded, but we talked about it before, how stubborn he is. I mean, he's got like I just heard a rumor that he could be like 10 to 20 million to be the Jeopardy host or something like that. It was like some astronomical amount of money to be the Jeopardy host for some. I can't remember. It was something ridiculous. So it was like, if that's the case, he's looking for money, which I don't even know if he is, because he's already made a pretty penny. But if that's the situation, then it sounds pretty good to me to be the Jeopardy host. Go to Hawaii every once in a while and live your best life and save your body. But he is pretty stubborn. He's won everything already. So I'm going to give it a 50-50 coin flip. It. I mean, there's lots of variables. He'll be traded. He could retire, but he also could still be destroying the Lions and the Vikings like we've been experiencing for too many years. So who really knows? But it's an interesting one. And once again, we'll just keep paying attention. Last thing here before we get to the interview, Armand, I sent you the video. I mean, you guys fluked out last year with getting Jefferson when Philly kind of botched that draft pick, but I felt free immediately when I sent you that video. It was the Vikings, or so not the Vikings. It was the Carolina Panthers draft room when they were about to make their pick and they were looking for offers for their pick, and the Vikings were trying to trade up, and it was 4 Fields was the reports, and they obviously didn't give them a good enough offer, and Carolina made their draft pick and went corner. But oh man, we were watching it together. You were pretty hyped up. You thought for sure they're getting them. You thought maybe they're just going to keep sliding, and then no dice, no Fields. And now you guys end up taking a 3rd round draft pick and kept going. And in true Vikings fashion, you're like, nope, cut him. We're moving with Fields. I wanted him. true Vikings fashion. But oh man, your draft experience would have been totally different at that point if that was the case.
So much more different. You know, not that I hate Cousins. Like he's serviceable. But he's not worth what they're paying him. He's not.
That's going to read on his tombstone.
Yeah.
Serviceable.
Yeah, he's not elite. You know, like he's good enough to get you to the playoffs, I guess. I don't know, but like, and we all 3 of us are super high on Fields going into the draft here too. If he would have went Vikings, that would have been way better than Chicago. You know, like I'm speaking as a Vikings fan, but
yeah, right.
They got a pretty good offense, and you put Justin Fields in there, and that would be pretty spectacular. And our defense was terrible last year, but I have faith in Zimmer that our defense is going to be top notch again this year. Just COVID year, kind of funky with everything, right? So, you know, put Justin Fields on a team that has that offense that the Vikings have, and then has the potential with the Zimmer effect on defense to have a great defense. Oh, I would have been so excited going into the season. Now I'm just going into another season being like, let's hope Cousins can do something.
Hey, the good news is you still get to watch him twice a year, so
It's interesting though. Like they tried going from, what were they, 14 overall, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They tried going from 14 to 8. So when that didn't work out, they still had a shot with 9 and 10, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if their offer was, you know, as enticing as those teams thought it was. Like, were they just trying to be like, oh, like, you don't just like anybody, we'll do you the solid, we'll give you a 2nd pick, and we can both be happy about it.
Yeah. That's probably what they were doing.
Where other teams are willing to pay the bag.
But they should have paid the bag.
Oh man, spoken like a true Vikings fan. Just a revolving door at Q.
Hey, with Fields, it wouldn't be.
Yeah, locked and loaded franchise guy Armin Schellenberg making the stand right now.
Yeah.
Any last comments here about insiders and headliners, fellas, before we throw it to this interview? I'm pretty excited for this one, boys. I know we talked about it a little bit already, but oh man, it's a pretty good interview. So,
well, let's get her going then.
Let's get her going. Okay. Well, this offseason segment is a interview with Brian Witherspoon, New York Giant, Super Bowl 46 champion. Let's throw it over there. All right, everyone. Today's a pretty exciting day for us here, for us hosts. We're doing our very first interview. And I would say we're setting the bar pretty high with our first one for moving forward for any guests we have coming on after here. But I'd like to welcome to the 306 Fantasy Football Podcast, former NFL cornerback, special teams returner, NCAA Div 2 All-American, U.S. Nationals 100-meter and 200-meter sprinter, and Super Bowl 46 champion, Brian Witherspoon. Brian, first of all, thanks for coming on, and how are we doing today?
Man, thanks for having me. Doing very well. It's the NBA playoffs. I'm a huge sports fan all around, so I got a lot to look forward to after this. But thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Oh no, well, the pleasure is all ours. Little backstory. Me and Armin, when we were starting to kickstart this podcast up, I think one of us had said, it'd be kind of cool to get some interviews on. I think that'd be pretty sweet, and I think some people would enjoy that. And we kind of went back and forth. And I said, man, like I think if we got a Super Bowl champion on, we could probably shut the podcast down. Well, we're pretty happy there, but this is episode 8. I don't think we're gonna fire it down too soon here. But yeah, we're definitely pretty excited to have you on, and definitely here's not only your story, but hear some stories you can share about your NFL experience, and obviously post NFL experience going to the track world, and then obviously post football world too, and what keeps you busy now. So I guess we'll start it off. So born in Butler, Alabama, and then went to high school in Choctaw County High School in Butler as well. So like, what was your life coming up with football? Did you start right away, or was it like right in high school you kind of got it going, or how did you get yourself involved with football?
Man, my family was a big Alabama fan, and coming up around the time I was, just getting into football, it was all about the Crimson Tide. I was a big David Palmer fan. My granddad was a big David Palmer fan, and Derry Elastic. And honestly, my granddad kind of, gave me the push to kind of get into football. My granddad and my uncle. So we started out inviting all, my cousins and stuff down, and just friends from school. We would all play football in front of my grandma's yard. Sometimes we didn't have a football, so we would even use like a deflated basketball and, just go in the yard and kind of throw it around. So, that's when the football started for me.
So pretty young. So then a lot of success in the high school career right off the hop, or was it kind of later into your college career we started getting a lot of success?
You know what? Actually, when I was in high school, I wasn't, for some reason, I just wasn't really feeling football anymore in high school. I played, obviously, my first 2 years. My junior year, I didn't play at all. I didn't want to play. So I didn't play football my junior year. I didn't play any sports my junior year of high school. My senior year, that's when I started focusing on more so like, what am I going to do? I need to go to college. I don't want to, be down here, just staying in the same place, kind of mimicking what everybody else was doing in my family. No disrespect to them, but I just kind of had a different mindset. I just can't be here. I gotta leave. I gotta do something. I don't want to go back and just work in a factory like everybody else. So that's when I really kind of started taking football serious. And I saw that it could kind of, help me out a little bit because, man, I know we kind of skipped over this, but like I was actually a huge baseball guy.
Oh yeah.
Growing up. Yeah, so I was a huge baseball guy. I played a lot of baseball, pee-wee baseball, high school baseball. I would say baseball was more so my first love. So football is just something I played because I was good at it. And like, my granddad and my uncle kind of pushed me to it, but it was more so like baseball for me. But yeah, I would say I kind of started getting looked at my senior year of high school.
So when did you make that transition then from ball to focus predominantly on football, or did you still do both? Did you still do ball and football, but then college was the football, or when did you make that transition?
For me it was I was heavy baseball. Like I said, I played pee-wee football. I was, like I said, I was good at it. Even like my first 2 years of high school, man, I didn't really play. The guys were a lot more. I hit a growth spurt late. So that's why, the growth spurt didn't really matter in baseball, but like, for football, it definitely matters. So I hit a growth spurt late. So that's kind of what I focused more so on baseball coming up. But, when I got to college, and I realized that I could actually play, I started, focusing more on football and track and field actually. But I definitely focused more on football because I realized that I actually had an opportunity to kind of, do some more things.
Absolutely. So you mentioned college there, where you ended up going to Stillman College in Tuscaloosa. So about an hour and a half-ish drive from Butler. So nice and close to home, which is nice. So and you found quite a bit of success there. Obviously, in 2007, you were named the Div 2 All-American. So found obviously yourself some personal success, and your team did quite well too as a 7-4 season, which was one of the more successful seasons they had for the college. So maybe you want to run us through a little bit of that 07 season.
Man, the funny thing was that year we had a lot of guys, and I hate because I started out at Alabama State University actually before I went to Stillman, so I ended up transferring to Stillman. So I was at a Division I AA school. Didn't it was still close to home, about 2 hours away from home, but really wasn't feeling it. So decided to transfer. And, I spoke to one of my friends Chandler Blakely, who was already at Stillman College, who was doing pretty well. And he was like, yeah, man, I talked to the coach, come on now. So I transferred to Stillman. So I got there, like I said, had a little success. And man, it just kind of took off from there, man. I worked hard. It was a lot of guys that, kind of had like the same mindset. We were trying to do bigger things. The funny thing about that, and I tell everybody this to this day, like we used to go across the street, because University of Alabama was like 5 minutes away. So we used to always say across the street. And we used to whoop these guys' ass in 7-on-7. Like no lie. So like a lot of the guys on our team were like former Division I athletes. So like we were like legit athletes. So like we were like getting it. And they used to always, we used to go to parties and stuff. They used to talk noise. They're like, you guys go to Stillman College, you D2, like, y'all don't go to UA. Man, we used to go across the street and whoop those guys' butt, man, in 7-on-7. And that's when it really kind of got started because, like we was going like, and that's kind of what helped us do better that season. We was like, yo, like we pretty good. Like we some pretty good athletes. And that's kind of how that kind of helped us. I know it's only 7-4, but like, yo, we realized that we were some legit athletes.
Yeah, roll tide at that point.
Yeah, we was killing those guys.
That's unreal.
Yeah. All right. So you entered the draft for 2008. You measured in at 6'1", 195, 4.22 40-yard dash, and that was a combine result then.
That was so my coach and at Stillman College was he was a guy that had a lot of connections. He started out at Morris Brown College that was in Atlanta, Georgia, which was very popular back then. Very popular college. He had a lot of connections. So he saw me and my best friend at the time, Denate Hurd, and he was like, yo, there's no way you guys shouldn't get a shot. Like the way I see you guys move down the field in their practice, he was like, I need to just make a couple phone calls to get you guys looked at. So he made a phone call and 2 scouts came out. It was one from the Jacksonville Jaguars and one from the Philadelphia Eagles. So they gave us a junior pro day. Nice. So we came out like my junior year. They timed us in the 40. They gave us 3 opportunities to run a piece. We did some drills, but they really wanted to check out our 40. So, man, I dropped that 4.22 at that junior pro day.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I dropped that 4.22 at that junior pro day, man. It was kind of all she wrote from there. Like after that, there were scouts coming to see us practice every week. So That's kind of how that started.
Nice.
That's incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
Yo, that year when the year I came out, like it was Simeon Castile, DJ Hall, who else was big at Alabama back then? Like LaRon McClain. But for the most part, at my position, it was like Simeon Castile was like the talked about like world's best corner in the SEC, which was really, I'm not gonna say it was funny, but he ended up not getting drafted. Like I said, man, it was like we had scouts coming to like watch our practice film and game film, and they was like, "You guys are better than the guys across the street at University of Alabama. They're just playing on TV every week."
Yeah.
So after that pro day, I guess you started picking up some traction. And how was the whole process leading up to the draft then for you? The experience there?
Yeah, it was pretty stressful actually. I don't think I know a lot of guys probably don't mention that, but it was pretty stressful. So, like, I left school in the spring, and I left actually I left for the spring, but I actually left Alabama in December. I moved to New Jersey, and I was training at Joe DeFranco's. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Joe DeFranco, but he was a big guy in New Jersey at the time. I think he's in Texas now. So I left up there. I left to go up there, moved to New Jersey. It was called Saddle River. I'll never forget that. Saddle River, New Jersey. And it was cool at first. Like it was definitely cool. Like, you like I said, you're excited for the experience and you're thankful for the opportunity. But those were probably like the longest 3-4 months that I've ever experienced before in my life. That was my first time like being away from home for that long and kind of, just being isolated. Especially being in a new environment, like being up there, like, New Jersey, New York. I met some great guys that I'm still cool with to this day. But it was a great experience. Like I said, I got to meet Joe. I seen, like, Brian Cushing, like that's where he trained. So, I got to hear stories about Brian Cushing. I saw all, the records that he set there on the wall. I kind of set my own records that are still up there to this day. That he took to Texas with him, and it was fun, man. And that's when you really kind of saw like who really wanted it. Like, oh, this is what it takes to kind of, get to the next level. Like, you got to come up here and push your body every day. And then when I was up there, I got invited to 2 All-Star games. So I got invited to the Hula Bowl. So I ended up going to the Hula Bowl while I was there, and I got invited to the East. I think it was no, it was the North-South Bowl. I don't think they have that anymore, but it was the North-South Bowl. And I ended up not going. I was just like, yo, I'm tired. Like, I train 24/7. Like, I only get 1 day off a week. Like, I'm good. So I played in my All-Star game, the Hula Bowl, with a lot of other D1, Division I guys, and I was cool. Like I said, experience was great, but it definitely burnt me out. That draft process definitely burnt me out.
So moving across the country and putting in insane amount of work, for all that to add up and then unfortunately not getting drafted, was that a little disheartening for you?
Honestly, I never even expected to get drafted anyway. So it wasn't a complete shock. I didn't expect to get drafted. Even when scouts was coming in and it's like, hey, you guys are good athletes. You're a Division II school. Unfortunately, you probably won't get drafted. Like, and that's what they kept it real. They was like, yo, unfortunately, you probably won't get drafted. You'll definitely get an invite. You'll definitely get signed the same day, but you probably won't get drafted. And that's what happened. Like, I didn't get drafted, but I was getting calls throughout the entire draft. Honestly, I think it was my fault. If I would have played it a lot better and kind of told those guys like, oh yeah, such and such just called me. They said they're gonna take me in like, the 4th, 5th round. Like I seen a lot of guys do. I probably could have definitely got drafted because I got calls from like Oakland, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, San Diego, Jacksonville blew me up the entire draft. Washington. I probably could have if I would have played my cards right, I definitely probably could at least went like 5th, 6th round. But me not knowing it, but I was like, oh yeah, nobody, only a couple teams have, reached out. No one said they're gonna draft me yet. Like I was just be like this little humble kid, didn't really know. But if I would have played my cards, I probably could have definitely like kind of forced a hand and someone would have drafted me, but I didn't. But like I said, right after the draft, Jacksonville sent me a contract like, hey, we want you here. This is the signing bonus we'll give you. Please come. So they sent me a contract. Tampa Bay called me. Oakland called me right after the draft and tried to get me to come. And I ended up took a look at the roster and see if I was going to and just kind of like examine the bit. And I was like, oh, if I go to Jacksonville, I got a real shot at actually playing as a rookie. So I chose Jacksonville.
It was nice that they're blowing you up during the draft too a little bit. So obviously they had a serious interest in you.
And the crazy thing about it, the guy that they drafted in front of me, I got him cut. But yeah, man, Trey Williams from University of South Florida. Yeah, they the DB coach looked like he was like, hey man, I'm trying to get them to draft you, but they're probably gonna go after this kid from South Florida. And he was right. They got the kid from South Florida, and he said, I still want you to come here. Please come. And that's where I ended up.
There you go.
Yeah, see, I've often heard following the draft, different reporters and different analysts and stuff will say that oftentimes going undrafted is almost preferable to going in that round 6 or 7 range, because it gives you that chance for you to be in the driver's seat and to look at your offers and to look at the depth chart. And it sounds like that's the experience that you had. You looked at the
Yeah, for
depth chart
sure.
in Jacksonville and you thought it was a good match.
Yeah, for sure. If you don't get drafted if you don't get drafted in the 4th round, you're better off. Me personally, outside of the signing bonus, and from my experience, being undrafted would be a good choice because you actually get to kind of just check out like, hey, these guys have only 4 corners. These guys have 6. These guys have 7. If I go here, I definitely have a shot at playing or making the team. So that's how it worked out for me.
So, did you have an agent going into the draft, or were you just kind of on your own there?
Well, I had an agent, Eugene Lee. I think he's at Vanguard now, but at the time he had his own agency. Man, me and Eugene are still like family. I consider Eugene like a brother to me. He definitely took me on his wing, and the thing that I liked about Eugene was the fact that he didn't lie to me during the entire draft process. He was totally honest. He said, "Hey, man, I'm not gonna give you any money. I'm not doing all the things you see these agents doing. I can't get you into any bowl games." He was like, "Hey, that's all determined by your tape." He said, "If you get into any All-Star games, it's on you. It's not on me." I had other agents calling me, and man, you know what? I think, man, if a lot of people would be surprised. I had agents that rep some of the top athletes in the NFL, like coming after me at that particular time. So, but they all sold me the same. They all sold me the same line. Like, I can get you this. I can do that. I represent this guy. I represent that guy. Yeah, it just didn't seem genuine to me. So, especially not being a guy like a high draft pick, and definitely I had the. I was like, yo, man, I'll just be another guy on the totem pole for you, and you're not gonna treat me like I'm one of these first, second round picks. So I just decided to go with the guy who came in and was just honest from the jump.
So after you sign with Jacksonville, what are those weeks or those months like leading into the rookie mini camp, into organized team activities? What is that process like?
It's a sense of excitement. You're nervous. You don't know what to expect. It's a bombshell, man. It's kind of like a bomb being dropped on you. Like stuff is just coming from everywhere. The process, well, it was a waiting game. Like we don't get the guys who don't get drafted. You don't get flew out the next day like the first, second round picks. Like they don't fly you out.
Right, you're
like
not holding up the jersey.
Yeah, like you don't get a chance to do that. You come, when you get there, like when it's time to report before the first day of camp, of OTAs and mini camp. So very fast pace. They come in, you come in, and they sit you down in the room and, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. This is what we're gonna work on. Okay, you got it. Let's go. Like, it's not, when you get there, it's not, oh, okay, so take some time, look over these plays. I'll give you like, 30 to 40 minutes to an hour to kind of look over the playbook. Nah, man, like you go into the meeting, it's you and like 5, 6 other guys. They have everything on the board. You introduce yourself, you watch film, they call the plays out. After about 10 minutes, okay, let's go to the field.
This
Welcome
is
to the
Like, yeah,
NFL.
like it's like in practice. Like, it's like, oh shoot, like, yeah, we about to go to the field and like and go at this. Like, yeah.
this is the NFL, sink or swim,
Yeah, like
basically.
this is the league. Like,
Yeah.
like, yeah. Then you get in a mini camp, you get a chance to, that was OTA. So you get in a mini camp, you come in, you're going over game situations. They have everything that they want to practice. And there's no going over it 2 or 3 times. Okay, this is what we're going to run against 11 personnel. This is what we're going to run against 12 personnel. This is what we might do if they send this guy in motion. We're going to check to this. If they come out in 21, 22, this is what we're running. And you're like, okay. And after that meeting, you have like a 5-minute walkthrough, then you go straight to practice. So like, there's no time for you to sit there and okay, what did they say? What did coach say do in that particular? Like, nah, man, it's like boom, boom, bada bing. Like this is this is it. Like that's how they separate guys in the NFL. The coaches don't cut guys. Guys cut themselves because it's like, the quicker you can pick up on this is how much you're showing us that we can trust you.
Absolutely.
So if you can't pick up on this information that this quick, and you can't formulate this stuff, like, you're out of here.
So a huge mental aspect to that.
Oh, yeah.
Actually making it to the next level there.
Yeah. Definitely it's all mental, man. I say this, you can be the best athlete on the field, but the thing they're gonna look at, and they're big on this, every team I play with, they have this chart. It says ME, like me, stand for mental errors. So you definitely don't want to be at the top of the mental errors.
Oh, they would rank you guys.
Yo, you would come in like, and you're like, say, in the DB room, I know they will look at, okay, this is how many mental errors you have during camp. And you're like,
yeah, you want to be low on that chart.
Yeah, you want to be low on that chart. So yeah, man, for the ME, they're like, yo, they ain't, man.
Well, I can't imagine doing that at high school.
That's unreal. So then getting yourself into, I guess, the first season, your first NFL debut, you make that immediate impact in that week one where you averaged 41.3 yards per kick return, and you had 22.5 yards on 2 punt returns against the Titans in that week one. So what was that? What was that feeling like? Kind of, I guess, almost proving everybody wrong. You go as that UDFA, and then all of a sudden you step in that week one and you're blazing, you're ready to go, and you're making that immediate impact. But what was that feeling like? Like, you're in the show now and you're making an impact.
Yo, excuse my language, man, but I was hyped as fuck. Yeah. Yo, like, no, seriously, like, so I came out there in pregame, no one's there. Then the game starts, we come out, we run out the tunnel, and like, yo, the stadium is like rocking. Like, it actually felt like the stadium was shaking. So I was like, yo, like, this is it. Like, yo, this is the show. Like, it's Sunday, like, I'm here. And what you don't see, actually, like, the first kickoff I got, I muffed it. Went back, picked it up, and like shook a guy, and then went up the sideline for about 50 yards. But like, yo, I muffed it. I was like, oh shit. Like, I muffed it. Like, it went through it hit my hands and went through my legs. I muffed it. Like, a guy came in too fast, and I ended up like sidestepping and went up the sideline. But that was definitely that definitely got rid of the nerves, like, real quick. It was a fun game.
Well, that's a roller coaster. Roller coaster
Yeah.
up to a 51-yard return.
Yeah, I was like, whew. I was like, oh, they about to cut my ass. Yeah.
That's unreal. So it's kind of skipping through a little bit here. I guess, what was one of your favorite memories of being a Jaguar before we move on to some of the latter a little bit of other teams that you were with in the NFL? What was some of your favorite memories of being with the Jaguars?
First off, it was making a team.
Yeah.
Making the team was a great moment. I made a lot of good memories in Jacksonville, man. I don't know if you guys watch the I Am Athlete podcast, like Fred and Brandon and Ocho. But Fred Taylor, man, I used to watch Fred Taylor when I was on Jacksonville. And Fred was a stand-up guy, man, like a real down-to-earth guy. I watched him from a distance, the way he carried himself, the way he handled himself, and he's every bit of what you see on that particular podcast. Another guy I was just amazed at was Rasheem Mathis. Like, I just never seen a guy just walk around, and how you always like, yo, how he do that? Like, that was the first guy I watched, and I was like, yo, how he do that? Like, I saw him like catch an interception in practice, like, but with one hand between his legs. I was like, yo, how he like just make everything look so easy? It's like, yo, how he do that? And like, I'm friends with Isaiah Gardner. Me and Isaiah are friends to this day. I met my best friend in Jacksonville. We're still friends to this day. She's living out in LA now. So I think the best memories of Jacksonville was the relationships I created, just being in a new city, a big city on my own. So yeah, I think man, just the relationships I made outside of football, definitely like in the locker room, but I met a lot of good people outside of football in Jacksonville.
Absolutely.
Pretty good stories about Justin Durant. His brother was the quarterback up here for the Rough Riders for a number of years.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? So I remember the first thing JD said to me. We were in a preseason game against Miami, and I had returned a kickoff for about 30 yards, but a punt, but I fumbled it. And he ran back on the field like we were tired. Like he was so tired. He was like, "Shit, Spoon, I'm tired as hell, but don't worry about that shit. We'll get the ball right back." That was the first thing he said to me. But like, yeah, oh man, Justin Durant was Justin Durant was cool. Like, he went to an HBCU. He went to Howard, so we kind of connected on that. Being a part of HBCU. So yeah, man, definitely. I forgot about JD. Yeah, JD was a great guy.
A little bit of Saskatchewan connection there. Hey, his
Yeah.
brother is borderline royalty here in Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Yeah. He has own cereal for at least a couple seasons.
Stereos or something.
Yeah. So then unfortunately catching a little bit of the injury bug there in Jacksonville, you end up getting waived in December of 2009 and picked up by the Lions. So this is where, as you can tell by my hat, the pictures in my background, I'm a big time Lions guy. So when I saw that, I was like, man, that is so cool. So you're in Detroit for a little bit there in 2009. Detroit, so towards the tail end there in the season, Detroit goes 2-14 that year. They're not very good, but Matthew Stafford's a rookie. Calvin Johnson's in town. What was it like being around those guys? Like for me, I'm going to fanboy here for a bit because I'm a big time Lions guy. So anything I can hear about them in that locker room, I'm going to relish this opportunity.
First off, Jordan, kudos to you for being a fan of the Detroit Lions.
It's tough. It's real tough.
Kudos to you. That's a very tough situation there. Kudos to you. But so actually, when I got there, Matt was hurt, so he wasn't playing. I think that's when he messed up his shoulder.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really playing when I got there. Calvin was a very humble guy. Man, when I got there, Calvin was probably like my biggest, not like cheerleader per se, but like my biggest supporter when I got there because the special teams was doing so bad. So he was glad to see me come in to kind of help him out as far as offensive field position. So Calvin was a great guy. I remember the first time I guarded him in practice, man, he stepped on my foot, and I thought I wasn't going to play the first game because Calvin had some huge feet.
Well, that's a big boy.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how big he was until I got there. And I was like, damn. I was like, bro, like you sick. I was like, yo, you taller than 6'5". I was like, like you're about 6'8". I was like, you got to be about 6'8", 6'7", 6'8". But he was like a humble guy, man, like quiet. Like he never said he didn't say a lot. He was very quiet. He was always in his corner, at his locker in his corner, just kind of just being observant, looking at everybody. So no crazy stories about Calvin. When I got there, the person, and I'm glad you said that because actually another guy who I went to college with, Sammy Hill.
Oh yeah,
had just got drafted there from Stillman College. So me and Sammy kind of reunited when I got there. But the guy who was the most active as far as like personality was Louis Delmas.
Oh yeah.
When I got there, the safety, Louis was he definitely brought a lot of Miami, Florida with him to the locker room. He was always dancing, always having fun, loud in a good way to kind of like get everybody else spirits up. So Detroit was interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I had to get a few in there. I said not too often I can talk about the positivities of Detroit with people. So I was hoping to be able to get something to lift the old spirits.
So in the end of 2010, you signed with the Giants, and not long after signing with the Giants, that's when the NFL had their lockout for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What, if any, impact did that have on your career or your your future aspirations?
Man, you know what? I think New York was probably one of the best situations that I ever been in. I believe that was the first team to actually give me a chance to be a starter. And the lockout for me, I think a lockout did me good because it gave me the opportunity to kind of work more so on my game. And when I got there, I was, no offense to those guys, but I was in shape. I was in more shape than like a lot of the starting secondary. So when I got there, I was ready to go. So, I still I have the utmost respect for the New York Giant organization. I still get emails from the Giants, and it's true what they say. Once a Giant, always a Giant. They always keep in touch. They send us emails like every other week, seeing how we're doing, keep letting us know what other Giants players are doing, former Giants players. We have reunions. We're having another reunion in October, so they're bringing everybody back up to New York. So that's one of the best, or if not the best organization, I think, in the NFL. But they definitely gave me a shot at being a starter. Unfortunately, like the injuries kicked in, but I was definitely on my way. They definitely gave me an opportunity to be a starting cornerback in the NFL. And, sadly, things didn't work out with my knee, but I was definitely on the way. I do believe that if I wouldn't have got hurt in New York, I would have definitely been a starting cornerback.
So you did mention that at the end of the preseason in 2011, you did end up tearing your ACL. Can you explain a little bit about what the rehab process looks like during the season? Because we'll see on TV occasionally injured players will be on the sidelines at home games, but what is it like day to day as an injured player on the IR?
My best description of it is kind of irritating. And it's irritating because you're coming in, you're watching everybody else kind of, in the locker room, going to meetings and, going out to practice. Then you're watching them play on Sunday. And you know that you could be out there playing. And man, you don't feel like you're a part of the team anymore. You're coming in, you're rehabbing. You're only talking to the trainers for the most part of the day, because when you come in, you see the guy. Usually you get there before the guys get there because you have to be there early to start the rehab. And then, you see the guys when they come in the training room while you're rehabbing and, getting iced down and things like that. But then, you leave before practice sometimes, and and you don't feel like you're a part of the team. It's kind of lonely because you feel separated from everybody else. And that first year, man, I thought about that. I was like, oh, out of sight, out of mind. So I was like, yo, I got to stay up here. I got to, try to still go to meetings. And it just didn't feel the same, man. So eventually I just ended up leaving, going back to Florida and just rehabbing in Florida. And, it just doesn't feel the same. It's kind of depressing, actually. I didn't come back to New York until they asked us to come back, because they knew that was going to go to the Super Bowl. So they was like, hey, come back. We want all the players to come back, all the guys on IR to come back. And we're all going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
You're still you're a Giant. We're all still New York Giants. They took everybody. The entire organization went. Everybody got paid. Everybody got a Super Bowl ring. Everybody. From the janitor, everybody.
So before we get into the playoff run there, and obviously hinting at it, I guess some of the guys that are on that team, it was kind of an interesting story. So the whole thing of Tom Coughlin that year was finish. It's pretty well known that his motto was finish that year, coming off of the tough season they had beforehand there. But man, what Eli Manning arguably had his career year that year. Victor Cruz came out of nowhere after kind of a depleted receiving core and set the franchise record for receptions. You have 1,500 yards on 82 receptions, I think. Then Hakeem Nicks, they had went from having a depleted receiving core and not knowing what was going to happen to all of a sudden just being studs. And the defensive line was just scary. Was JPP and Justin Tuck, what was being just around those guys, and being able to just going from kind of a an unfortunate season before, and then Coughlin saying, "Hey, let's finish," and then starting the season off hot there. What can you tell me about that team kind of getting on the run?
There was never any panic in that locker room. Like I said, if you go back and look at the preseason, we had about 7 guys that got hurt in the preseason. I tore my ACL. Terrell Thomas tore his ACL. Our starting middle linebacker tore his ACL. We had for sure 3 ACL tears. The rest of the guy, Clint Symptom, dislocated his kneecap. So we had about 5 to 7 guys with serious injuries, and it was just okay, next man up. Nobody panicked. Everybody still played to their level of expectation, and like I said, doing rehab, I still saw the guys having fun, being relaxed. And man, you know what? I'm glad you brought Hakeem Nicks and Mario Manningham and Victor Cruz, because I don't think those guys actually got enough credit. I don't think the receiving core for that particular team got enough credit. Enough credit. Hakeem Nicks was a good receiver. Mario Manningham was a good receiver. Victor Cruz was a good receiver. I think we kind of had I don't know, I don't think nobody really respected
Underappreciated.
our receiver. Yeah, we was very those guys was very underappreciated. Even Ahmad Bradshaw, was very underappreciated. If you go back that season, man, he broke off 1 million big runs. So
especially in the postseason, man, did he look good?
Yeah, especially in the postseason. We just I don't think if you go back and look at that season, man, we played a lot of good ball. It was just one of those things where I think the league was changing. It was more so offensive, so teams were scoring a lot more points. So we just kind of got overlooked as not being a very good defensive team. But like you said, you take a look at our D line, we had a serious rotation. Our secondary was still good. We had Antrell Roll in the background, Kenny Phillips. So a lot of people just kind of wiped the Giants off the board, that particular year with all our injuries, but we still had a very good team. So I think we were very underappreciated that year.
Yeah, making that stretch week 16 and 17. I'll talk about the Cowboys game there in a bit, but that week 16, I think kind of was a little bit of excitement. What was that like for you, I guess, hearing all the media and the Jets running their mouth and Rex Ryan running his mouth, and then there's the beef between Revis and Cruz, and it just seemed like there was a lot of hoopla coming in week 16, and it was a win. They needed to win, right? You guys needed to win 16-17 to make the playoffs. So was that just added fuel to the fire, or especially for you, how was it listening to that on the news and stuff like that, and what was the kind of the emotions?
I actually went back to New York for that game, so I was on the sideline.
When they covered up your guys' Super Bowl stuff on the walls, there was some serious beef in week 16.
Yeah, man. I went back up for that game, and Hakeem and Darrell Reeves was talking noise to each other the entire game. Like I said, Rex Ryan was talking noise, but that was the play where Victor took that 95-yard out, 5-yard out run, took it 95 yards, and that was it. It was that was a very intense game. Hakeem and Darrell Reeves was talking noise to each other the entire game.
I love when they pan to Victor after he goes, "You're gonna know my name now. Do you know my name now?" Yeah, I guess I got a little hot. There he goes.
Yo, Tom was even hyped during that game. I don't think a lot of people know, even Coach Coughlin was very hyped, very into that game because he wanted to get to the playoffs bad. He had a point to prove. So that was a very intense situation, a very intense game. It was very loud. It was fun being on the sideline during that game.
I was talking to a good buddy of mine. He's a big time Giants fan. And he was saying that, what gets kind of thrown under the radar is that really the Giants played 2 extra playoff games than anybody else, because in the playoffs, it's win or go home, right? And you had 2 extra games that they needed to win there. And if you lost week 16, it's over. You lose week 17, it's over. And that week 17, a divisional game against the Cowboys, you win the division, you're going in the playoffs, and end up beating the Cowboys 31-14. And now the boys are off to the playoffs, where it just seemed like at that point it was just gaining momentum, and You win, you're going on. You win, you're going on. And those are a couple big games, and you can kind of see the momentum churning. Hey, like they're ready to go. So then the playoff stretch, wild card game against the Falcons, give them a licking, 24-2. Divisional game against the Packers, the former Super Bowl champions, give them a licking, 37-20. And then you go and play the 49ers, who I think, like, when you look at that team, was unbelievable. And it ends up going to overtime. What was that game like? Like 2017 overtime against arguably one of the best teams in the NFL that season.
That was definitely, you saw it. It was definitely a nail biter. I think I've never seen so many guys praying on the sideline in my life. Yeah, it was a close game, man. Definitely an exciting game. Definitely a lot of butterflies.
You as a returner, what's it feel like being on the other side? He botches the return and he gives you guys the field goal range. What's like? That's got to be heart wrenching, even as you as a returner. Even though it pushed you guys right to the Super Bowl, that's got to be a heart wrenching moment.
Oh, you definitely got to feel for the guy, man. You know, for him to fumble that ball in that particular moment, that could have just basically sealed their way to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
you definitely got to feel sorry for the guy, but hey,
his loss is your gain.
Yeah, sucks to suck.
Yeah, it's what it is. So I'm gonna. I put myself down to talk about this, but I'm maybe gonna let Zach hit this off because Zach's a big time Pats fan. So we're gonna force him to ask the question about Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Gronk, Hernandez, Welker, Ocho Cinco, like pretty good Pats team, 0-2 that year against the Giants. Zach, maybe you wanna ask him the question about how the Super Bowl went that game.
So playing the Pats in the Super Bowl, what was the feeling like in the locker room the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl? Because there would have been a lot of players that were on that team from 2007 that beat the Pats in the Super Bowl. So was there a lot of like veteran leadership, or where there's a lot of excitement amongst the players?
Yeah, that's definitely when Justin Tuck kind of took over in the locker room, and just with everything, Justin, was kind of the leader of that group, and he just, he kept saying this all the time. He was like, you guys don't know what it feels like. He was like, I already got a Super Bowl ring. You guys don't know what it feels like. He was like, but I do. We're playing the same team. We're in the same situation. They're doubting us. They're saying we're gonna lose. He was like, I've seen, like, we've already, defeated these guys and beat these guys. Same scenario, except for, this time they're not 18-0. But, Justin that's when Justin kind of took over. That's when you saw the leadership, from Justin Tuck, and he definitely stayed on guys, kept guys focused that week. And, I just looked in awe. I was like, wow, that's, Justin is a real leader. He's a stand-up guy, just from being around him. But that's when he definitely showed his character and leadership.
That team, that Patriot team, had some of my favorite players on it. Like, had Brady, had Gronk, had Welker, Hernandez. I liked him. And then they had some pretty good role players like Kevin Falk, Danny Woodhead. Julian Edelman wasn't really, the Edelman that we know now, but he was up and coming at the time. Can you let us in on any of like the game plan that you guys had for that offense?
I mean, it's kind of the same game plan for the first Super Bowl, from what I was told. Just get to Brady.
Pressure up the middle, right?
Yeah, pressure up the middle. Get pressure with the front four. Kind of sit back and play and keep things tight in the secondary. And the guys, they kind of said, like, hey, we're gonna get our job done up front. You guys just make sure you hold it down on the back end. So that was pretty much the game plan from what I saw. And that's what happened. Like, you saw it. The same thing, like the Giants are Brady's kryptonite, And if you kind of watch it, if you watch football this past season, you saw Washington do the same thing to them in the playoffs. They just, Washington just couldn't score.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, if when you're with man, anytime, and I think that's good. It applies to any particular offense. If you can get pressure with your guys up front, like the four guys up front, doesn't matter how you do it, then you can win any football game.
Well, just look at the Super Bowl this year. I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but the Buccaneers produced like an insane amount of pressure with four-man
Yeah,
front
exactly. So
and
that's
let
all it
everybody
takes.
else drop
Yeah.
back. So, well, thank you for letting me unpeel that painful Band-Aid.
What was it like seeing that ball and like that ball in the air? Like you listen to interviews and guys say it's felt like that last Hail Mary was in the air for years. Like what was that final seconds like?
Yo, he almost caught that.
Yep.
He almost caught it. Yeah. Like even when he almost caught it and he batted it down. I think it was Wes Welker was right in front of him. So like if he would have like just hit it out a little farther, Wes would have caught it and walked in the end zone. So if you like go back and look at the highlights from that game, like he batted it down, and I think like Wes was standing right there. If it went out a little further, he probably could have caught it and just like ran in the end zone.
So that the final play finishes, the whistle blows. What was that feeling of winning like? Like, can you describe that feeling for us?
Yo, I was like, damn, I just won the Super Bowl. Like I got, and this, I felt so bad for doing it because I was like, yo, why am I even doing this? But I was on cloud nine. I think I posted on Instagram. I was like, yo, I said I got more rings than LeBron James. Because at the time, LeBron James hadn't won the Super Bowl yet. They hadn't won the NBA championship yet. So I was like, oh, I got more rings than LeBron James. But yo, the confetti came down. Yo, it was wild. It was fun. It was amazing. I was like, yo, I'm a part of NFL history now. You know, I got a Super Bowl ring, so it was great. It was fun. It was unbelievable. Like I said, I'm thankful to this day. You know, that bad boy is locked up. So man, that was fun. That was a good time, man. I definitely that's something I remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. So how was I guess the whole experience, like you said, getting the ring, that's like going from UDF, well, not even going back, going from not even playing high school football for a year, going UDFA and then winning the Super Bowl, like you said, that's a dream come true. I mean, like that's pretty, like that's got to be your favorite moments your entire life, like.
Favorite moment, I mean, it was definitely one that I'll never forget. It's definitely probably number two. I'll say my best moment in my entire life is, I guess it would be kind of cliche, but it was me getting like my college degree, because I was the first male in my family to get a college degree. So it would probably be that, then the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's a good one. Actually, myself, I just kind of piecing together. You say it's cliche, but I can't say it is too much because I'm the first person in my family to get a degree too, and it's a very humbling experience, like for your family and people surround you, and it's a very humbling experience to say that you're the first person in your family to achieve something that high. Yeah, it may sound a little cliche, but it is a very humbling experience. Like it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so that would be number one.
We kind of glossed over this, but what is your degree in, and what kind of made you choose that direction for your schooling?
So my undergrad degree, or my bachelor's in history. I have a master's in public policy, and I have a graduate certification in public administration. History was always my favorite. It was history and science. Those are my two favorite subjects in elementary school, high school. I always did the best in those. Like I read a lot, so I'm definitely kind of like a bookworm when it comes to finding out information. I like information.
So after the Super Bowl in the spring of 2012, you're back with the Giants, and unfortunately, you re-injure your ACL. After re-injuring that ACL for the second time, what's going through your mind?
I was like, yo, I'm done. Actually, I was like, yo, I'm done. I'm probably done. Like I came back even before that in training camp. Oh, it was OTAs. I came back OTAs. I still didn't really feel like myself. And I tore it again. I was like, you know what? I said, this is probably it. You know, I'm probably done. I need to start like thinking about life after football. And that's what I kind of started to focus on. But the weird thing about this, man, is that like Winnipeg, like the Blue Bombers, like when I came out of college, they had my rights. So they had been trying to get me to come to the CFL for the longest. And I agreed to a contract to come to the CFL and play for the Bombers. But I turned it down to the last minute. I decided not to come. And what's crazy is like 5 years later, I ended up moving to Winnipeg. So,
So what is that like with the CFL? Like they basically just acquire your negotiation rights, and then are they just sending you like you up texts whenever, or
You up, babe? Text.
you up text.
like what is that like?
Man, so they got in touch with my agent. They was like, hey, you know, is Brian still playing? Like, does he still want to play? And, you know, my agent was like, yeah, you know, he still wants to play. But, you know, we're just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. And, like I said, they offered me the contract, but then I was like, you know what? I'm okay. You know, it's fine. Like, I don't want to play anymore. Like, I'm good. I think I'm just going to go ahead and shut it down. And that's what happened, man. I shut it down after that. I was like,
So looking back on your career, 30 games over the course of 3 seasons, capping it off with that Super Bowl victory. Aside from that victory, though, what is your favorite memory from your NFL career?
that's a tough one, man. Like I said, you know, just being invited to camp, having the opportunity to kind of, you know, make a team, that was definitely surreal. So when I actually got in the NFL environment, you know, like I said, being from Butler, Alabama, I was like, shit, you know, like this is it. You know what I'm saying? So that probably like just looking at that, just taking that, you know, coming from where I come from, and just like, yo, like I'm walking into like this huge stadium, like I'm, you know, getting all this gear, like I'm really here, and I'm meeting the coaching staff. I think when I had my first NFL like team meeting, I saw Jack Del Rio walk in. I was like, shit, he's big. I was like, he played linebacker. You know, I was like, shit. I was like, yo, I'm in the league. Yo, this is cool. So I think like that first meeting, that was the best one, because you know that's when like you realize that you're there. So especially being where I'm from, you know, and like I said, I didn't even play ball my junior year, and you know, football was never my first love. Like I love baseball and stuff like that. It was that was very surreal, and I think that was, you know, you never forget your first, right? So that's what.
It's a pretty good answer.
Yeah, that's that was it. You know, like that was probably my favorite memory. Like that was it. And just walking around seeing guys that you watched on TV. Like I was just watching those guys on TV like a year earlier, and I'm like, yo, I'm in the same locker room with them now. So
Right.
So after you retired from football, you then went into to become a full-time track and field sprinter. Was that a pretty quick decision, or what was the kind of decision-making process there?
it wasn't a quick decision, because I was just gonna get, you know, just kind of get back and just start, you know, try to get into corporate America. But before I actually went to play football after college, I was going to try and run track professional. Like I had the qualifying times. If you go back and look at my times from my senior year, I qualified for the Olympic trials. I just never went. So that was why I was going to go to the Olympic trials and try to, you know, run track and field professionally then, and like, you know, try to make the Olympic team. But if I didn't make the Olympic team, like, yo, you know, I ran the times to qualify for the Olympic trials. I'm gonna go. maybe I could, earn a sponsorship from Nike or Adidas or somebody. But end up, choosing to play football. So I said, you know what, let me go get this thing a try. I'm still pretty young. I was 27 at the time. So I was like, yeah, let me see what I can do.
Do you feel like after the ACL injuries, you still had the same speed you had before them?
Oh, man, what's crazy? I got faster after I tore my ACL.
I should try it.
Which was really weird. Yeah, I got faster, bro.
That's wild.
Which was weird.
Yeah. Those PB numbers are incredible. Like I was looking at some of the Olympic numbers from like when you're qualifying and the numbers that like you're not far off. Like those PBs are unbelievable. Like 10-2-2 and 26-6 for the 100 and the 200. Like those are some numbers.
Yeah, man, I got faster because like when I was done, I think I ran 10 trials after I was done playing ball. I ran 10:22.
Yeah,
10. I ran like a tenth of a second faster than I ran in college. so I was like, oh, okay, I guess the rehab worked, So.
And then the transition from training for sprinting compared to football. What was that transition like? Was it hard to kind of change your mindset after training a certain way for so long?
Yeah, it was pretty tough. Because, in college, I played football, then went out and ran track, but I was kind of just like, not taking it serious. But, like when I went back to run track professionally, I was like, whew, like this is really tough. Like, I don't know if I, want to do this or not, but, I stuck with it. And yeah, the diet was different. Like I couldn't lift as many weights. I had to lose weight. I think I was already small when I was playing football. So I went from like 172 from 172, 175 to like 160.
Oh, wow.
I lost a bunch of weight, to try to get my body back in like track and field shape. So it was pretty tough.
So then everything after the entire playing career, the sprinting career, everything kind of came full circle here. So what's life after football now for you? What kind of keeps you busy now? I guess family life, work life. What keeps you busy?
So man, I'm working in pharmaceuticals now. So I actually work for AstraZeneca. I'm a respiratory specialist. So I work with asthmatic and COPD patients. I have a son. My son is my world. I love my son to death. So he's, my main focus now. So that's what keeps me busy. And, like I said, I love my fantasy football, man. And, fantasy baseball.
You mentioned the Fan Duel. Like, let's keeps you busy. Talking about working for Fan Duel. Give us that story.
Yeah. So they did an NFL fellowship program, and I got chosen for the program. I worked there for about 12 months. That's when they had the whole, fantasy sports got shut down because the mayor of New York was mad because, they weren't paying taxes and stuff. So they laid a bunch of us off. Like, unfortunately, I got laid off. But I used to write the content. So I was writing like, hey, this is who you should pick. This is why you should pick them. So I was like a writer. So I was writing like the actual like daily, like the DFS matchups. Like saying like, hey, you should choose this particular receiver this week or, quarterback. And man, I think I won a lot of people some money. I was working there, but it was fun. Like we did the whole draft thing, the mock drafts, and I worked with a lot of guys from Bleacher Report.
Yeah, that's the dream.
I got a chance to work with they actually tried to get me to come up. Like one of the guys called me was like, yeah, man, like we saw your resume and, Chris would love for you to come up. We want you to move to New York though. And I was like, nah, man, I ain't moving to New York. Like I'm in Orlando. Like I'm good. Like, like I like staying, I want to live in Florida. I want to live in New York like that. But yeah, so I ended up going, but yeah, I worked there for like 12 months. It was fun. Like that was my first time being like the fantasy football world. And ever since then, I never even knew what fantasy sports was until I worked at Fan Duel. Like I didn't play. I had no intentions of learning how it worked. It's like, man, what the fuck is fantasy sports? Like, I was like, this is stupid. Like, I was like, yo, this is dumb. But like when I actually started like working there, I was like, yo, this is pretty fun. This is dope. So now I'm like a huge fantasy guy.
So back when you played for Jacksonville, you played with Maurice Jones-Drew. And by all accounts, Maurice Jones-Drew is a big, big fan of fantasy football. So maybe not for you, but what is fantasy football like inside a NFL locker room? Do you guys have like a league within the team that different players participate in, or?
Man, like I said, like, you know, like I never paid attention to it. So I couldn't even like I couldn't even tell you, like, when I was done, I feel, talk to some of the guys who played, man, they didn't care. Like when you guys, like, not you guys specifically, but like when fantasy players are getting mad at them and like, yo, man, you could have got me 5 more yards, I would have won. Like those guys, like, man, fuck y'all. Like nobody, like, yo, care about your fantasy team, like.
I've seen from both sides. Like Juju Smith-Schuster, like he's big time fantasy. He does his own teams.
Yeah.
But then there's the other side where there's, like, you've seen lots of reports of guys that have become quite critical on Twitter and Instagram, and guys saying like basically like, kick rocks. Like, we don't give a shit about your fantasy team. Like, we're out here trying to make money. We're here trying to play our game. We're trying to make our careers. We don't give a shit about your fantasy team. Like. So it probably more of the latter end of that. I guess it's probably what you saw a little bit more was the secondary, I guess.
Yeah, I saw that particular, because I don't think guys are really into fantasy sports. I don't think it was as big back then as it is now. So yeah, I didn't get the Juju, Schuster part, when they're like, oh yeah, I got you, bro. Like, I'm gonna make sure your fantasy team win. When I was playing, it was like, man, get out of here with that.
Yeah.
Cause like I said, I didn't even look at that stuff. So I was like,
so I guess so I have 2 questions. One of them is Armin's. So I'm going to ask from a non-fantasy side, and then Armin's is a fantasy side. So who's one of your favorite NFL players to watch, like just watching the game? And then Armin's is maybe one of the ones where it's one of your favorite fantasy players.
Man, so my favorite player I ever like watched, like play was like, obviously, it was Jerry Rice, which is weird because I'm a DB, but like I always wanted to be like Jerry Rice. But when you talk about like now in today's game, man, it was a lot. Like I was a huge fan of Le'Veon Bell when he was on Pittsburgh, so that was my guy. Carlos Hyde was a good guy. Like, for like Armin's question, like fantasy wise, like Carlos Hyde came through like every week. I think he was underappreciated as a fantasy guy. Like Antonio Brown, obviously, definitely a good, big time player. Yo, man, I hated watching Tom Brady, man. Like because it was like not like hating him in the sense of I don't like him as a player, but it's like, yo, he about to win. So it kind of got repetitive. So it's like, yo, like
you tweeted that you're cheering for him in the Super Bowl. How come you're cheering for TB12 there? I was surprised when I saw that.
You always want to see, you want to see some, you want to see guys make history. That's just a part of the game. I respect Tom Brady a lot. Like, in my opinion, now he's the GOAT. That's the greatest QB of all time. Like, he's the GOAT. But yeah. So my favorite fantasy player, though, I would say right now, I'm gonna have to say a guy that that's gonna guarantee you and get you points every week is probably Patrick Mahomes. Like guaranteed, like at least 20 points every week, like guaranteed.
Then that's his bad weeks.
Yeah, this is bad week. Yeah, so like Patrick Mahomes. I used to be a big Drew Brees guy and fantasy, but not anymore. But like, yeah, I would say Patrick Mahomes now.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap her up here with a couple rapid fire questions for you. Okay, so first question: favorite teammate ever?
Man, you know what? That's my friend now. So Isaiah Gardner, like my friend in Jacksonville. So yeah. Isaiah.
Best or most talented player you've ever shared the field with?
Without a doubt, Rasheem Mathis.
Without
a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Favorite meal?
Shit, man. Probably some chitterlings. Hot sauce, like chitlins with drenched in hot sauce and pepper.
Oh yeah. Okay, I was gonna say non-favorite football moment, but you already said that was getting your degree. Favorite thing about Saskatchewan?
Everything about Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan has great food. I
Yeah.
think the food is good. Yeah.
Way
great food.
underrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, some of those places
Very
downtown are
underrated.
unreal. I guess this is the last question here I have. Who do you think is the best player in the NFL right now?
You gotta go Tom Brady, man. Until somebody dethrones the guy,
He's the GOAT.
Tom Brady, man.
Yeah,
Tom Brady.
Zach's
Until he leaves, man, like Tom Brady. I can't even hate on dude anymore, man. Like, yo, Tom Brady.
Zach's got a shit-eating grin on his face over there.
Yeah.
I knew I liked this guy. He's
That's all I got, fellas. Any last couple questions for him from your guys' side?
What's the worst decision you ever made in fantasy football?
Worst decision. I think I picked. I remember this. I think I picked Ezekiel Elliott over. In my opinion, I think I picked Ezekiel Elliott over Michael Thomas the year he had like 100 catches.
Yeah, he set the what was it, the record for receptions that season?
Yeah, and I think that was the year like Ezekiel Elliott didn't play. Like I still drafted him anyway, thinking that he was gonna play. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough one for a lot of people spending the high draft equity on a player.
So I got him, because I think he only played like 7 games that season.
Yeah.
Thinking he was gonna come back. Yeah.
That's better than Powell in the first round.
a guy in our work league took Blau Powell. I think it was in the second round. He's a huge Jets fan, so he's like, "Yeah, Blau Powell." We're like, "Oh my god, it's probably the worst draft pick I've ever seen."
Probably just shut his fan. You should just told him to get out the league because we know you can't play.
Is that the principal?
Yeah, he was our principal, and we're all teachers, so he's in our work league. He's our principal, and he's like, "Yeah, Blau Powell, second round. Here's my donation."
Yeah, you should tell him like, "Yeah, we know you can't play. Just get out. Yeah, get out."
Oh man, it was it's still an ongoing good joke. You can get a laugh out of for that one. Well, I don't know, fellas, that was that was unreal for our first interview. I definitely wouldn't want to have it any other way there. I'm real happy with how it went. Obviously, really happy having you on, Brian, to be able to tell your story, and obviously now living in Saskatchewan, so we got that little Saskatchewan connection there. I mean, Saskatchewan connection. Real happy you didn't play for the Blue Bombers there, because it could have went ugly for us. But I don't know. I'm really appreciative for you having coming on for us, and next time we're in Saskatoon, might have to get together and have a beer and watch one of those games with you or something. Next time.
Man, I'm at Cathedral Social Hall a lot, man. That's my spot. So
good spot.
Me and the GM, we're cool. Like we're pretty good friends. So I go there and chill with Patrick a lot, and that's all we talk about is football. So yeah.
Come football season, we have to make our way down there and have a couple pops on a Sunday and catch some football.
Yeah, man, definitely. Yeah, don't be shy about hitting me up, man. Like I'm not doing anything. I'm just chilling. So just hit me up.
Right on. Well, I appreciate that. Thanks again for coming on, you guys. Everybody, that's Brian Witherspoon. Thanks again for coming on. That's our very first 306 fantasy football interview. All right. So obviously want to send a big thanks again to Brian Witherspoon. Obviously, first interview we've had, and it's going to be hard to top that one. A Super Bowl champion coming on to our podcast. But obviously, big thanks to him. I personally, I love the story about how they just used to roll Alabama across the street there 7-on-7. It's like, yeah, you don't hear that too often, that a Div 2 college is rolling in and giving a perennial house a licking and a little 7-on-7. But yeah, that was a good interview, fellas.
Yeah, and that's on the lighter side. It kind of like got me in the feels when he was talking about his ACL there, especially with the Giants, and I was like, oh, I feel for you, man, because like you could tell like that was a little bit harder for him to talk about.
Yeah.
Wow, I appreciate him sharing that. He made it a super easy interview for us too.
Yeah, he was easy to talk to. I found it interesting how at the start of the interview he was talking about his high school experience. How he's a baseball guy first. He liked football, didn't love football, picked it up a little bit and later on in high school. So I just found that surprising. Obviously, not everybody is, football through and through. And it was nice seeing that multi-sport athlete, and it worked out for him. So happy for him that he's had the opportunities that he's had. Thought it was very neat that he was attempting to qualify for the U.S. Olympic team despite 2 ACL tears.
Well, yeah, and getting faster off those ACL tears. Like,
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Well, I'll definitely have to come season there. We'll have to go sneak down to Saskatoon and watch a little Sunday football and have a beverage or two with him and be able to talk football. Cause man, I imagine that's just kind of just opening the door a bit. Some of the stories he could tell and some of the stories he could share from his football experiences, I can only imagine. Going from obviously back from the high school stuff all the way to the track and field, like you mentioned, pretty interesting guy, and obviously definitely a lot to share. So I was very, very appreciative of him coming on and do that. And we'll definitely have to sneak our way down to Saskatoon come season. And I got to check the schedule. Like I don't know. I got to check see if Vikings or Lions, because they would have the similar schedule if they see the Giants at all this year. But Zach, do you know the Pats see the Giants at all?
I'm trying to think who their NFC opponents are.
I can't remember at the top of my head, but I'm thinking if we can get one of those matchups, that might be the one to try and sneak down for. Because like you said, once a Giant, always a Giant.
Yeah.
Any last couple comments here, fellas, before we wrap this thing up?
No.
Nothing. It was
that was a fun episode.
Yeah.
Again, like always, let's keep the good times rolling. Yeah,
a little bit different, but definitely enjoyed that one. So once again, fellas, thanks again for jumping on. Big thank you to Zach, obviously, for coming back and trifecting this podcast. And we're rolling now. So Woo! like, subscribe, share our accounts on podcast platforms, YouTube, and obviously our social media accounts as well. And thanks again for listening, and stay tuned for episode number 9 coming in soon. Have a good one.